He was a big man. That was the first thing anyone noticed about him. 6'4", 250 pounds, all muscle. He moved with a quiet grace that belied his size. People got out of his way without him having to say a word. They called him Big Ben. Not to his face, of course. Nobody was stupid enough to do that. Ben wasn't his real name. It was a nickname he'd picked up in the army, a reference to his size and his British heritage. His real name was Benjamin Carter. He'd been born and raised in a rough part of London. Life hadn't been easy. He learned to fight before he could read. The streets were his classroom. He had a face that looked like it had been carved from granite, a strong jaw, a hard mouth, and eyes that had seen too much. He wore his dark hair short. He had a tattoo of a snake coiled around a sword on his left arm, a memento of his time in the Special Forces. Big Ben was a man of few words. He didn't waste time on small talk. He was all business. He was a man who knew how to handle himself in any situation. He was a dangerous man, but he was also a good man. He had a strong moral code. He would do anything to protect the innocent. He was a protector, a guardian. He was Big Ben. Lambeth was a tough place to grow up. Ben learned that the hard way. His father was a dock worker, a big man with a temper to match. He drank too much and took his frustrations out on his family. Ben's mother was a small woman, worn down by life. She did her best to protect her son, but it was a losing battle. Ben was 8 years old the first time his father hit him. He never forgot it, the sting of the blow, the look in his father's eyes. From that day on, Ben vowed to be different. He would never be like his father. He would be strong. He would protect the weak. He started training in martial arts when he was 10. Boxing at first, then judo. He was a natural. He had a gift for it. He was strong and fast. He learned quickly. He trained every day. It became his obsession, his escape from the chaos of his home life. Ben joined the army on his 18th birthday. It was an escape from the dead-end life that awaited him in Lambeth. He excelled in basic training. He was bigger, stronger and faster than the other recruits. He volunteered for the Special Forces. He wanted to be the best of the best. The training was brutal, designed to weed out the weak. But Ben thrived on it. He pushed himself harder than he ever thought possible. He learned how to fight in any environment, with any weapon. He learned how to kill. He served in some of the world's most dangerous hotspots, Iraq, Afghanistan. He saw things that would make a normal man go mad. But Ben wasn't a normal man. He was a soldier. He did his duty. He never complained. He never backed down. After 10 years, Ben left the army, honourably discharged, decorated for valour. He returned to Lambeth a changed man. He'd seen the world, faced death countless times. He didn't belong in this place anymore, but it was home. He used his savings to buy a rundown pub in his old neighbourhood. He called it the Duke of Wellington. It became his sanctuary, a place where he could forget the horrors of war. He kept himself busy, working behind the bar, fixing the place up. He didn't talk about his time in the army. He didn't need to. It was written all over him. The regulars at the Duke knew better than to ask. They respected him. He was a good listener. He dispensed advice sparingly, but when he spoke, people listened. He was a calming presence in a chaotic world. Section 5. The night everything changed. It was a Friday night. The Duke was packed. A group of young lads stumbled in, loud and obnoxious. They'd been drinking heavily, looking for trouble. Ben watched them from behind the bar, his eyes cold and assessing. He knew their type. They started harassing a young woman. She was alone, clearly out of her element. Ben watched them, his jaw tightening. He didn't like bullies. He especially didn't like men who preyed on women. He put down the glass he was cleaning. It was time to teach these lads a lesson. "Leave her alone," Ben said. His voice was low and dangerous, the kind of voice that commanded respect. The lads laughed. One of them sneered at him. "What are you going to do about it, old man?" he said. "Big mistake." Ben moved like a striking cobra, fast and deadly. He grabbed the first lad by the collar and threw him into his friends. They went down in a tangled heap. The other two looked stunned. They'd never seen anyone move that fast. Ben cracked his knuckles. "You lads need to learn some manners," he said. He moved towards them. They backed away, fear in their eyes. They tried to fight back, but they were no match for Ben. He was a whirlwind of fists and feet. They didn't stand a chance. It was over in seconds. The lads lay on the floor, groaning in pain. Ben stood over them, his chest heaving. "Get out," he growled, "and don't ever come back." They scrambled to their feet and fled, leaving a trail of blood and broken teeth in their wake. Word spread quickly. Big Ben had taken on 3 men and won. Some people said he was crazy. Others called him a hero. Ben didn't care what they called him. He wasn't looking for fame or glory. He was just doing what needed to be done. He started patrolling the streets at night, a silent guardian, watching over his neighborhood. He didn't carry a weapon. He didn't need to. His fists were all the weapons he needed. He broke up fights, chased off muggers, protected the innocent. He became a symbol of hope in a place that had forgotten what hope was. The police knew what he was doing. They turned a blind eye. They had bigger problems to deal with. Besides, Ben was doing their job for them. He was keeping the streets safe. The newspapers got wind of the story. They dubbed him the Lambeth Leviathan, a modern-day knight-errant. The public ate it up. They loved a good vigilante story, especially one with a local hero. Ben hated the attention. He wasn't doing this for the recognition. He was doing it because it was the right thing to do. The police were under pressure to make an arrest. The politicians were demanding action, but Ben was too smart for them. He knew how to stay one step ahead. He was a ghost. A whisper in the night. The people of Lambeth protected him. They wouldn't betray him. He was one of their own. He was their protector. He was their champion. He was Big Ben, and he was unstoppable. Ben knew this couldn't last forever. He was walking a tightrope. One wrong step, and he could fall. He was breaking the law. But he was also upholding a higher law, the law of the streets, the law of right and wrong. He wondered what would happen when the police finally caught up with him. Would he go to prison? Or would they turn a blind eye to his actions? He didn't have the answers. All he could do was keep moving forward. One day at a time, one fight at a time. He was Big Ben, and he would face whatever came his way, just like he always had.